Justin Timberlake, Selfish here on Hometown Mornings, 95.3 KUIC. It is 8:04 in the morning. John Young and Jerry Stewart in for Cynthia Seats. Jerry's coming up in about 5 minutes or so with a look at the roadways, but right now in studio with me, and I'm thrilled to have him and realizing it's the first time he's been in studio with me, the great author Tony Wade. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's just so fun to have you physically in studio. We talked about this, and I still can't believe this is the first time you've been in the studio.
First time, yes, and it's awesome so far.
Okay, good. I was going to say, hopefully it's not underwhelming. The decorations are a little austere, so to speak. But listen, Tony, I appreciate you taking time to come in here talking about your brand new book, which is Growing Up in Vacaville. Mm-hmm. For those of you who may not be familiar with Tony's work, you wrote a book several years ago called Growing Up in Fairfield, right, which I have a copy. It helped get me more acquainted with the city of Fairfield, mm-hmm, the town, some of the cool stuff that happened in and around it, you growing up there. So my question automatically comes back to, if you're growing up in Fairfield and you're growing up in Vacaville, which town are you growing up in, Tony Wade?
Or am I growing up at all is a real question. Well, fortunately, it's not about me. These are not memoirs. They're about the cities. And so when it comes to growing up in Vacaville, I was really juiced about exploring outside my comfort zone. And I learned so much. And I do have some Vaca creds. My brother worked at CMF. My daughter went to Buckingham. I used to go to Vacaville Music and TV to get heavy metal imports in the 80s. But that's kind of about it. But I learned a lot, though. I learned a lot doing the research.
Well, and when you're talking about doing the research, you're an accidental historian. We talked about that, and you and I are both fascinated by history, both local history and history in general. Did you wind up meeting certain characters that made an impression on you? When your first book has a lot of different sights and sounds and some of the stuff that was going on physically and culturally. Did you meet anybody in your journey through Vacaville that you scratch your head and went, wow, I didn't know that, or wouldn't realize that, or that person was really helpful in getting me to understand stuff about Vacaville?
There is a ton of people, actually. And actually, the hardest part was trying to squeeze as much stuff as I could into 192 pages. And, one of the ones that come out is Scott Gordon, who I did not know was this hip hop artist, a manager for years who came from Vacaville. And so there are many others who, Coach Z and Mayor Bill. There's so many who I knew things about, but I was able to delve deeper into them while doing the research.
Well, you also came up with some research, speaking of music and speaking of Buckingham Charter School. That was interesting. I think you and I had talked about this on the phone when the book was coming out. The connection of Fleetwood Mac's Lindsey Buckingham has to Buckingham Collegiate Charter Academy. That's actually a story. It's actually a thing.
Right. Well, somebody had posted it on Facebook, so I had to investigate it, and that his father went to Vacaville High and graduated in 1938. Wow. And that his I guess it was a maternal grandmother was Elise P. Buckingham. So and I was like, at first I saw it and I was like, yeah, right. But then it was true. It was true.
Vacaville has some amazing history, and as a person who didn't grow up here, but came here as kind of an interloper in the late 90s and took over Hometown Mornings back in 1999, this community has been so great to me, embracing me, allowing me to work here for so long, and really, calling me a brother. But when I get to read a book like this, I get to feel a little closer to the town that I didn't grow up in, but now has become sort of my second home. Did you feel a little bit that way when you wrote the book and finishing and reflecting on it?
Absolutely. And the last chapter really talks about that kind of thing. It reflects on so many things I've heard Vacaville people say about. One of the things, obviously, is, oh my God, there's so many people here now. My city's changed so much than the way it used to be. And to be sure, no city's going to be a hermetically sealed bubble that stays the same the whole time it's been in existence. It's going to change. But however, there are things in Vacaville that have that small town feel to it too. Still, Merriment on Main, obviously, the Fiesta Days Parade, all these things that have made Vacaville, continue to make Vacaville what it is today. It's getting much bigger, and yet they have the small town feel all at the same time.
And you hear people say that a lot when they're new to the town. And I got to remember that as I broadcast to people all over Solano County, obviously. People are moving here all the time. The population is increasing, but there's a lot of people who don't know much about the ginger snaps at the nut tree. Goodness knows I didn't know that stuff until I showed up and got to hang out with people like you and Ron Brown and Cecil Connolly and some of the other folks who've been so generous to educate me a little bit on what's going on in town. The book is called Growing Up in Vacaville. And Tony, you're going to offer a couple of book signing get-togethers for folks, including this Saturday.
this Saturday from 12:30 to 4:30. I'm going to be at Vasquez Deli, and if you're a long timer in Vacaville, you didn't know the address. You already know. You know?
Google it. Right. That's Vasquez Deli. That's right. From 12:30 to 4:30.
Correct.
And you've got some other ones coming up too. If folks want to be able to meet you, and I highly recommend it. This book is amazing, but meet the author. Ask him questions. You're real good about answering and even delving into if people found something they didn't think was totally accurate, they have a way to address that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because my thing is, look, I'm an accidental historian. If you want, if you find something that's not exactly accurate, well, what do you want? I'm not Ken Burns. I'm an accidental historian. So you can find me and find where I'm going to be at signing books and talking to people at Tony Wade, accidentalhistorian.com.
That's Tony Wade, accidentalhistorian.com. And Tony, I appreciate you taking the time to come into the studio. I hope it will leave you with the impression that, wow, it's a little, it's under budget, but at least it's working. You know,
yes.
Tony Wade, ladies and gentlemen.